Riding a motorcycle isn't just about staying upright, it's about developing habits that make you look like you know what you're doing. Some mistakes are easy to spot, and when other riders see them, they can tell right away that you're still figuring things out. And if you want to avoid looking like a rookie, here are 15 habits to break. Number 15, riding above the speed limit. Speeding isn't just a ticket magnet, it's one of the biggest giveaways that you're not as skilled as you think. A lot of new riders get caught up in the thrill of twisting the throttle, thinking that riding fast makes them look experienced. But in reality, seasoned riders know that control is more impressive than speed. When you're constantly pushing past the speed limit, you're reducing your reaction time and increasing your stopping distance. That means if a car suddenly pulls out in front of you, you have far less time to react. And if you don't have the skills to handle emergency braking at high speeds, things can go south fast. Another problem, speeding makes you predictable in the worst way. Car drivers already struggle to judge a motorcycle's speed. If you're blasting through traffic way above the limit, they won't expect you to be there when they change lanes. That's how close calls and crashes happen. And if you want to look like an experienced rider, keep it smooth, ride within the flow of traffic, and don't let the speedometer dictate your confidence. Number 14, holding the clutch in when stationary. You pull up to a red light, left hand squeezing the clutch like your life depends on it. That might seem like a harmless habit, but experienced riders will instantly clock it as a beginner move. Why? Because holding the clutch in for long periods puts unnecessary strain on the clutch plates and can lead to faster wear. It also means your left hand is constantly under tension when it doesn't need to be. Over time, that leads to hand fatigue, which can affect your control when it really matters. A better approach is to shift into neutral at a stop and let go of the clutch. That way you're not putting extra stress on the bike or yourself. Plus, when the light turns green, you can casually shift into first gear and roll out smoothly instead of fumbling with that lever at the last second. Now, some riders argue that staying in gear at a stop is safer because it lets you launch forward if a car behind you isn't slowing down. While that's true, you don't need to sit there with the clutch pulled in the whole time. Just keep an eye on your mirrors, and if you see a car coming in too fast, shift in first and get ready to move. Number 13, swerving through traffic. Zipping between cars like you're in a high-speed chase might make you feel like a pro, but to anyone watching, it's a clear sign of inexperience. The truth is, swerving through traffic is reckless, unpredictable, and one of the easiest ways to get yourself in trouble. For starters, car drivers don't expect a motorcycle to weave in and out of tight spaces at high speeds. If you're darting between lanes, you're counting on every driver around you to see you and react in time. But the reality? Most won't. All it takes is one driver changing lanes without checking their blind spot, and you're in serious danger. Even if you somehow avoid getting hit, excessive weaving makes your movements erratic. Good riders know that smooth, predictable riding is key to staying safe. Instead of constantly cutting through traffic, pick a lane, maintain a safe following distance, and only change lanes when necessary. Now, this doesn't mean slipping between stopped cars and traffic is bad. In fact, when done responsibly, it can be a smart way to avoid getting rear-ended, but there's a huge difference between careful lane filtering and reckless swerving. Number 12, stopping in the middle of a turn. There's no faster way to tell the world you're still figuring things out than hitting the brakes mid-corner. It's a classic beginner mistake, and it usually happens because you're either entered the turn too fast, panicked, or just weren't confident in your lean. The problem is that braking in a turn messes with the bike's stability. When you squeeze the front brake mid-corner, the bike wants to stand up straight, which throws off your line. If you grab too much brake, you can even lose traction and go down. On the flip side, if you roll off the throttle too abruptly, the bike can get wobbly or feel unstable. Experienced riders avoid this by setting their speed before the turn. The idea is simple. Slow down before you enter the corner, lean in with a steady throttle, and smoothly accelerate out. That keeps the bike balanced and predictable. If you ever find yourself going too fast in a turn, the key is to stay calm. Instead of slamming the brakes, look through the corner and gently ease off the throttle while maintaining your lean. Your bike can probably handle the turn better than you think. It's usually the rider that panics, not the machine. Number 11, forgetting to cancel your turn signal. Cruising down the road with your turn signal still flashing is one of the most common rookie mistakes. Unlike cars, most motorcycles don't have self-canceling turn signals, so if you forget to switch them off, they'll just keep blinking indefinitely. This isn't just embarrassing, it's dangerous. A blinking signal tells other drivers you're about to turn. If you're not actually turning, you're giving them bad information. The driver might assume you're moving into their lane and either slow down unnecessarily, or worse, pull out in front of you, thinking you're about to turn off the road. The fix is simple. Make it a habit to check your signal after every turn or lane change. A quick glance at the dashboard or a light tap on the signal switch can save you from the awkward moments and potential accidents. Some riders even train themselves to press the cancel button every few minutes, just in case. And if you're the forgetful type, consider upgrading to self-canceling turn signals or adding an audible signal reminder. Number 10, target fixation. If you stare at something, you'll ride straight toward it. It's that simple. This is called target fixation, and it's one of the most common problems of beginner crashes. It happens when a rider locks their eyes on an obstacle, like a pothole, a curb, or an oncoming car, rather than looking where they actually want to go. Instead of steering away from the hazard, they unintentionally guide the bike right into it. The key to avoiding target fixation is to always look through the turn and focus on your exit. If there's an obstacle, acknowledge it with your peripheral vision, but don't fixate on it. Instead, shift your focus to an escape route. Your bike follows your eyes, so train yourself to look where you want to go, not where you don't. A great way to practice this is in a parking lot. Set up some cones or markers and deliberately focus on looking ahead as you weave through them. The more you train your brain to trust this technique, the more natural it becomes. Number 9, poor throttle control. A smooth throttle hand is one of the biggest differences between a beginner and a seasoned rider. If you're constantly jerking forward when accelerating or rolling off too suddenly mid-turn, it means you're still getting used to how the bike responds to throttle input. Poor throttle control can mess with the bike's stability, especially in corners. If you open the throttle too aggressively, you risk spinning the rear wheel or unsettling the suspension. On the other hand, if you suddenly shut it off mid-turn, the bike can lurch forward unexpectedly, making it harder to maintain your line. The key is gradual and controlled inputs. Think of the throttle like a volume knob, not a light switch. Instead of snapping it on or off, roll it on smoothly as you accelerate and ease off gently when slowing down. A great way to practice is in an empty parking lot. Try rolling on the throttle gently while standing still, getting a feel for how the bike responds. Then practice low-speed maneuvers like figure eights while keeping a steady throttle. With time, your hand will learn to make fine adjustments instinctively, and your riding will feel much smoother. Number 8, not covering the clutch and brakes in traffic. Traffic is unpredictable. Cars can stop suddenly, drivers change lanes without looking, and hazards appear out of nowhere. If you're not covering your clutch and brake levers, you're adding precious milliseconds to your reaction time. Milliseconds that could be the difference between avoiding a collision or slamming into a bumper. When riding in stop-and-go traffic or at lower speeds, experienced riders keep 2 fingers on the brake and clutch levers. This doesn't mean riding with the clutch pulled in. It just means keeping your fingers resting on the levers so you're always ready to react. The front brake provides about 70 to 90% of your stopping power, so being able to grab it instantly is crucial. And in situations where you might need to shift quickly, like when a car suddenly slows down in front of you, having your clutch hand ready makes a big difference. This habit is especially useful in urban environments where traffic can be unpredictable. Keeping your controls covered means you're always ready for the unexpected, which is exactly how experienced riders stay one step ahead of the road. 7. Riding too close to cars. If you're tailgating cars, you're putting yourself in a seriously dangerous position. Unlike cars, motorcycles don't have crumple zones or airbags, so if the driver in front of you slams on their brakes, you don't have much room for error. Following too closely also means you can't see what's happening up ahead. If there's debris in the road or a sudden stop in traffic, you won't have enough time to react. A good rule of thumb is to maintain a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle ahead. That gives you enough space to react if something happens. Another problem with riding too close, drivers might not even see you. If you're tucked right behind a car, you're sitting in their blind spot or blending in with traffic. Staying back a bit increases your visibility and gives you room to maneuver if you need to swerve or brake suddenly. An easy way to judge your following distance is the 2-second rule. Pick a fixed point ahead like a road sign or a shadow. When the car in front of you passes it, start counting 1 1000, 1 1002. If you reach the same point before you finish counting, you're too close. Number 6, failure to understand countersteering. If you don't fully grasp countersteering, your cornering skills will always feel shaky. Many new riders try to turn their bike by simply leaning their body or twisting the handlebars in the direction they want to go, but that's not how it works at speed. At anything above walking pace, motorcycles don't turn like bicycles. Instead, you need to countersteer. Push the right handlebar to go right, and push the left handlebar to go left. It seems counterintuitive, but it's how bikes naturally handle due to gyroscopic forces. If you've ever felt like your bike didn't want to turn or that you had to fight it through a corner, chances are you weren't countersteering correctly. Instead of muscling the bike around, a light push on the bars is all it takes to initiate the lean. The best way to get comfortable with this is to practice in an open space. Try riding at a moderate speed of 30 to 40 miles per hour and deliberately push one side of the handlebar. You'll immediately feel the bike lean in that direction. Once you get the hang of it, cornering feels effortless, like the bike is working with you instead of against you. Number 5, improper use of the rear brake. The rear brake is a useful tool, but a lot of beginners either overuse it or ignore it completely. Some riders stomp on it too hard, causing the rear wheel to skid, while others rely too much on engine braking and barely use it at all. The trick is understanding when and how to use it. The rear brake is great for slow-speed maneuvers, where a slight drag can help stabilize the bike. It's also useful in wet or slippery conditions, where using only the front brake could lead to a loss of traction. However, in emergency stops or high-speed braking, the front brake does most of the work. Grabbing too much rear brake at high speed can lock up the wheel, making the bike slide or fishtail. A good rule of thumb is to use about 70% front brake and 30% rear brake in most stopping situations. To master this, practice braking in a controlled environment. Get a feel for how the rear brake affects the bike's behavior at different speeds. Learning to modulate it properly will make your riding smoother and more controlled. Number 4, poor lane positioning. Where you position yourself in a lane says a lot about your experience level. Some beginners stick to the center of the lane, which is usually the worst place to be. It's where oil, dirt, and debris tend to accumulate. Others ride too far to the side, making themselves invisible to other drivers. Experienced riders constantly adjust their lane position based on traffic, road conditions, and visibility. The goal is to maximize your sight lines while making sure other drivers see you. Left lane position is great for increased visibility and avoiding blind spots, but can put you at risk if oncoming traffic is too close. Right lane position is useful when passing large vehicles or staying away from aggressive drivers. Center lane position should generally be avoided unless necessary, as it's often the slickest part of the road. The key is to be dynamic. Don't just pick one position and stick with it. Adjust as needed based on what's happening around you. If you're behind a car, position yourself so their mirrors can see you. If you're approaching an intersection, move slightly to where other drivers are most likely to notice you. Number 3, over-reliance on rider aids. Modern motorcycles come loaded with technology. ABS, traction control, ride modes, wheelie control, and even cornering ABS. These systems are great for safety, but relying on them too much can make you a lazy rider. A common beginner mistake is assuming that ABS or traction control will always save them. While these aids can help prevent crashes, they don't override physics. If you grab a handful of front brake mid-corner or pin the throttle coming out of a turn, rider aids might step in, but they won't make up for poor technique. The key is to use them as a backup, not a crutch. Instead of depending on ABS, practice proper braking techniques. Instead of relying on traction control, learn to feel how the bike responds to throttle inputs. Skilled riders understand that technology is there to assist, but the real control comes from the rider. If you really want to sharpen your skills, try practicing in a controlled environment with rider aids turned off, if your bike allows it. This forces you to develop good throttle and brake control. Then when you turn the aids back on, they'll serve as an extra layer of safety, not a substitute for skill. Number 2, riding with one hand. Sure, we've all seen experienced riders casually resting one hand on their leg while cruising down the highway, but if you're still getting comfortable on a bike, riding with one hand is just asking for trouble. A lot of beginners do this out of habit, whether it's adjusting their jackets, stretching their arms, or just getting too relaxed. The problem is that it reduces your control over the bike. If something unexpected happens, like a car cutting you off or a sudden bump in the road, you'll have less stability and a slower reaction time. There's also the risk of bad habits forming. If you're constantly riding one-handed, you're not training your body to have proper control at all times. Good riders keep both hands on the bars unless absolutely necessary, like signaling or adjusting a visor. If you need to stretch your arm or adjust something, wait until you're at a stop or riding at a very safe, steady pace. Otherwise, both hands should be on the controls where they belong. Number 1, riding without proper gear. Nothing screams beginner like hopping on a bike in a t-shirt, sneakers, and maybe a pair of sunglasses instead of a helmet. Even worse, some new riders think gear is optional just because they're only riding a short distance. But the truth is, the road doesn't care how long you plan to ride. Accidents happen in a split second, and even a minor slide at low speeds can leave you with nasty road rash, broken bones, or worse. Experienced riders know that proper gear isn't just about protection, it's about comfort and confidence. A well-fitted helmet reduces fatigue and improves focus, making long rides less exhausting. A good riding jacket with built-in armor adds a layer of protection while also keeping you comfortable in changing weather. Gloves improve grip and prevent painful hand injuries in a crash, and proper boots give you better control over the bike while protecting your ankles from impact. Riding without gear isn't just about taking a risk. It's a sign that someone hasn't fully grasped the realities of motorcycling. If you've ever seen a seasoned rider without proper protection, they're either taking a big chance or have been extremely lucky. But real skill isn't about luck. It's about preparation. If you want to look like you know what you're doing, always gear up. Which one of these bad habits are you guilty of? Feel free to share them with us in the comments. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on more informative motorcycle videos.